The air in the studio was electric even before the cameras rolled. Everyone knew Alan Dershowitz, the famed legal mind, the man who had spent decades on the biggest stages of American law. He thrived on confrontation, on finding the sharpest word at just the right moment, and tonight he seemed ready to remind the world of that reputation. Jasmine Crockett, younger, less seasoned in comparison, sat across from him. To many watching, she was still an underdog, a rising figure, but not yet tested against the kind of heavyweight who had sparred in courtrooms for years. The matchup alone was enough to make viewers lean closer to their screens. Then it happened. Dershowitz leaned forward, his voice heavy with arrogance, his smirk daring her to falter. With a dismissive wave, he mocked her law degree. He downplayed the institution she studied at, brushed off her years of grinding through classes, her nights of studying, her time proving herself in the legal trenches. His words weren't meant to debate her ideas. They were meant to cut her down personally, to humiliate her in front of the cameras, to reduce her credibility before she even spoke. For a split second, the studio felt colder. Some in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Others smirked, expecting Crockett to stumble. That was the trap, to knock her off balance, to make her defensive, to paint her as small in the shadow of his towering career. But what happened next flipped the script completely. Instead of looking shaken, Crockett straightened her back. Instead of raising her voice, she let a small, knowing smile cross her face. She didn't rush to answer. She let the silence linger just long enough for the tension to build. And then, with a voice steady and sharp, she began to speak. She didn't rant. She didn't lash out. She reminded him, and everyone watching, that her degree wasn't a symbol of privilege or easy access. It was the product of persistence, of sacrifice, of being doubted and underestimated, yet pushing through anyway. She made it clear that her education didn't stop at textbooks or classrooms. It came from the lived reality of the people she represented, from the daily fight for justice in communities that rarely make headlines. The words didn't just defend her. They elevated her. Each line landed with precision, and suddenly, the power dynamic in the room shifted. Dershowitz's mocking smirk began to fade, replaced by something else, surprise. The audience could feel it. The host leaned back, eyes wide, sensing a turning tide. The mockery that was supposed to diminish her had instead become the platform for her strength. And by the time she finished, the room was no longer laughing with Alan Dershowitz. They were listening to Jasmine Crockett. That was only the beginning. The silence after Jasmine Crockett's response was deafening. Not because the room was empty of sound, but because every single person was holding their breath, waiting for Alan Dershowitz's comeback. After all, he was the master of rebuttals, the man who could spin an argument faster than most people could finish a sentence. Surely, he would find a way to reclaim the spotlight. But the problem for Dershowitz was simple. Crockett hadn't taken a bait. She hadn't gotten flustered. She hadn't snapped back with anger. She had calmly dismantled his mockery and reframed the conversation on her own terms. And in doing so, she had left him with nowhere to go. If he pushed harder, he would look petty. If he backed off, he would look defeated. The cameras zoomed in on his face. That smirk that seemed so confident at the start now looked thin, forced. For the first time in the debate, the audience's attention wasn't on him. It was on her. Crockett leaned in slightly, not with aggression, but with the ease of someone who had nothing to prove. She spoke about the countless students who don't attend the Ivy League, but still work tirelessly to change the world. She spoke about the lawyers who graduate from state schools and spend their careers serving the poor, the marginalized, the unheard. She spoke about how law, at its core, isn't about prestige, it's about justice. And justice doesn't check your diploma before deciding if you're worthy. Every sentence built momentum. Every word drew the audience closer. By the time she finished, you could feel the energy in the room shift entirely. What started as a jab at her credentials had transformed into a rallying cry for every person who had ever been underestimated. People watching at home felt it too. On social media, the clip exploded almost instantly. Twitter lit up with posts praising her composure. TikTok creators clipped her response with captions like, Asterisk, this is how you win without yelling. Asterisk, hashtags trended. Even those who had never heard of Jasmine Crockett before were suddenly searching her name, replaying her speech, and sharing it with friends. And here's where it got even more interesting. Journalists and commentators began dissecting the moment. Some noted that Dershowitz had walked straight into his own trap. By mocking her degree, he underestimated her ability to flip the insult into strength. Others pointed out how her calm, measured tone highlighted something rare in politics: discipline under fire. For Crockett, the victory wasn't just in shutting down Dershowitz. It was in proving to the world that dignity could outshine arrogance. That when someone tries to diminish you, you don't have to lower yourself to their level. You can rise above, and in doing so, you make their attack look small. That night, Alan Dershowitz came in expecting to dominate the stage with experience, reputation, and force of personality. But Jasmine Crockett showed him, and everyone watching, that none of that can outmatch composure grounded in truth. And the most remarkable part? She wasn't done yet. By the time the debate wrapped, there was no doubt about who had walked away with the night's victory. Alan Dershowitz had entered with the swagger of seasoned veteran, but Jasmine Crockett had left with something far more valuable: the respect of the room and the admiration of millions watching around the world. Clips of her response played on repeat across networks. Morning shows replayed the exchange, highlighting her composure. Commentators who once doubted her abilities now praised her poise. And online, people weren't just talking about her words. They were talking about what those words represented. They represented every young lawyer told they weren't good enough. Every woman mocked for daring to take up space in rooms traditionally dominated by men. Every student from a state school or a less prestigious university who worked twice as hard just to prove they belonged. Crockett's reply was bigger than herself. It was a voice for all of them. Meanwhile, Dershowitz faced something rare for him: silence. Not the kind of silence that wins debates, but the kind that follows when an argument falls flat. His attempt at belittling her degree had backfired spectacularly. Instead of undermining her, he had spotlighted her strength. Instead of shaking her confidence, he had given her the perfect stage to demonstrate it. That's the thing about arrogance. It often overplays its hand. It assumes the other side will crumble. But when arrogance meets calm, calm wins. Every time. And here's the deeper truth. Crockett's composure that night wasn't just a debating tactic. It was a life lesson. In a world where people are quick to shout over each other, quick to belittle, quick to tear down, real strength is found in refusing to be dragged into the mud. Strength is found in standing tall, speaking clearly, and letting your truth carry its own weight. Her response has become more than a viral clip. It's a reminder that your worth isn't defined by where you come from, or by the names stamped on your diploma, or by the sneers of those who think they're better. Your worth is defined by what you stand for, how you carry yourself, and the courage you show when someone tries to push you down. Alan Dershowitz mocked Jasmine Crockett's law degree. She didn't just defend it. She turned that moment into a lesson for the world. She showed that dignity is louder than insult, that grace is stronger than arrogance, and that sometimes the best way to win the room is not to shout, but to stand unshakably calm. And maybe that's the takeaway for all of us. When the world underestimates you, when someone tries to mock your journey, remember this: you don't have to fight on their terms. The quiet truth, spoken with confidence, will always outlast the noise. Because on that stage, one man mocked, one woman responded, and in the end, only one voice echoed long after the cameras stopped rolling.